Dawn does not arrive gently on that morning. It breaks through the silence with a cold, unsettling clarity, as if the world itself has already begun to brace for something irreversible. The knock at the door is sharp, official, final. When the police deliver the news, it does not feel like a revelation. It feels like a sentence handed down without warning. Sheila Carter has been found dead. The words hang in the air with a weight that is difficult to process, impossible to absorb all at once. The explanation follows quickly, almost too neatly. Suspected suicide, driven by emotional devastation after the betrayal by Deacon Sharp and Taylor Hayes. It is a conclusion that seems logical on the surface, even expected, given the intensity of everything that has unfolded. And yet, beneath that surface, something feels wrong, as though the narrative has aligned itself too perfectly with what everyone was already prepared to believe. For Steffi, Forrester, Finnegan, and John, the news lands in a space caught between relief and unease. There is undeniably a part of them that feels a release, a loosening of the constant tension that Sheila's presence has imposed on their lives. For years, she has been the embodiment of unpredictability, a threat that could never be fully neutralized. The idea that she is gone offers something they have not experienced in a long time, the possibility of safety. And yet, neither of them is able to embrace that feeling completely. Finn, in particular, finds himself unable to accept the simplicity of the explanation. He knows Sheila in a way that few others do. Not just her actions, but her instincts, her resilience, her almost obsessive refusal to surrender. The idea that she would choose to end her life, that she would simply give up, does not align with the woman he has come to understand. That contradiction settles into his mind like a splinter, small but impossible to ignore. For Deacon and Taylor, however, there is no relief, only the crushing weight of guilt. The news does not free them. It binds them more tightly to the consequences of their choices. Every moment they shared, every decision they made, now feels reframed through the lens of Sheila's supposed despair. Deacon replays his final conversation with her, the words he chose, the tone he used, the cold clarity with which he ended things. What once felt like honesty now feels like cruelty. Taylor, too, is pulled into that spiral of self-examination, questioning not only her involvement with Deacon, but the ethical and emotional boundaries she may have crossed. Together, they stand on the edge of a realization that neither is prepared to face, that their pursuit of happiness may have come at a cost far greater than they anticipated. The funeral that follows is marked not by spectacle, but by an oppressive stillness, a sense that something unfinished lingers beneath the surface of every gesture, every expression of grief. Those who attend are united not by affection for Sheila, but by the impact she had on their lives, whether through fear, anger, or complicated, unspoken connections. Deacon and Taylor stand side by side, their proximity both a comfort and a burden. They do not need to speak. The weight of their shared guilt is evident in every glance, every subtle shift in posture. Around them, conversations are muted, cautious, as though everyone is aware that this is not a moment for certainty, but for reflection. Yet even in death, Sheila refuses to be reduced to something simple. Her absence is not peaceful. It is unsettling. There is a tension that lingers in the air, a sense that something has been left unresolved. Finn feels it most acutely. As he watches the ceremony unfold, he cannot shake the feeling that he is witnessing something incomplete, a story that has been prematurely closed. The official explanation does not satisfy him, and the more he tries to accept it, the more it resists him. It is in the quiet aftermath of the funeral, when the world begins to return to its routines, that the next fracture appears. The letter arrives without warning, unmarked, untraceable. It is addressed to Finn, and from the moment he holds it in his hands, there is an instinctive understanding that this is not coincidence. The weight of the envelope feels disproportionate to its contents, as though it carries something far heavier than paper and ink. For a moment, he hesitates, aware that whatever lies inside may alter everything he has just been told to accept. When he finally opens it, the words do not simply inform. They disrupt, unravel, dismantle. The message is clear, precise, and deeply unsettling. Sheila's death is not what it appears to be. It is a fabrication, a carefully constructed illusion designed to achieve something far more significant than escape. She is not gone. She has chosen to disappear. The realization does not arrive gradually. It strikes with immediate, overwhelming force. Finn's mind races to reconcile the impossibility of what he is reading with the reality he has just witnessed. The body, the official report, the ceremony, all of it begins to feel unstable, as though it could collapse under the weight of this new information. And yet, the more he considers it, the more it aligns with what he knows of Sheila. She would not surrender. She would not end her story quietly. If anything, she would choose to rewrite it entirely. Panic sets in, not as a sudden explosion, but as a slow, creeping certainty. If Sheila is alive, then everything they believe to be resolved is, in fact, only beginning. And worse, she now operates without constraints. No one is looking for her. No one is expecting her. She has removed herself from the narrative in a way that grants her complete freedom to act without suspicion. Finn does not hesitate. He seeks out Steffi first, his urgency evident in every movement, every word. But the truth he brings is not one that can be easily accepted. For Steffi, the idea that Sheila is still alive feels like a cruel reversal, a reopening of a chapter she had just begun to close. Her initial reaction is disbelief, not because the possibility is unthinkable, but because it is too terrifying to embrace. To accept it would mean accepting that the danger has not passed, that it has simply transformed into something more insidious. Deacon and Taylor react in a similar way, their skepticism rooted not in logic, but in emotional exhaustion. They have only just begun to process the weight of Sheila's supposed death, to grapple with the guilt and the consequences. To be told that it was all a lie, that she is still out there, watching, waiting, is almost too much to bear. And yet, as Finn presents the evidence, as the implications begin to settle in, denial gives way to something far more destabilizing: fear. The realization spreads quickly, altering the atmosphere around them. Sheila is no longer a memory, no longer a closed chapter. She is a presence once again, unseen but deeply felt, a force that could reemerge at any moment. The uncertainty becomes suffocating. Every shadow feels heavier, every unexplained detail more significant. The question is no longer whether she will return, but when and in what form. For Deacon and Taylor, the fear is compounded by something even more personal. Their actions, their decisions have not only failed to end Sheila's influence, they may have amplified it. The guilt that once felt tied to her death now transforms into something more complex, more unsettling. They're no longer mourning what they believe they caused. They're confronting the possibility that they have set something far more dangerous into motion. Their relationship, once a source of hope, becomes entangled with this new reality, shadowed by the knowledge that their happiness may have been the catalyst for something far darker. As the episode draws toward its final moments, the narrative shifts away from the characters who have been struggling to understand what has happened and toward the one who has orchestrated it all. Somewhere far removed from the places she once occupied, in a setting that feels deliberately chosen for its isolation, Sheila stands alone. There is no trace of the desperation that marked her earlier interactions, no visible sign of the pain that others believe drove her to the edge. Instead, there is calm, control, and something else, something far more chilling. She smiles. It is not a smile of relief or triumph, but of anticipation. Everything has unfolded exactly as she intended. The world believes she is gone. Those who feared her have lowered their guard. Those who wronged her are left vulnerable, exposed not just by their actions but by their assumptions. She has stepped outside the narrative that once confined her, and in doing so, she has gained something far more powerful than revenge: unpredictability. The final image lingers not because of what is shown, but because of what it implies. Sheila is no longer reacting to the world around her. She is shaping it. And as the screen fades, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This is not the end of her story. It is the beginning of something far more calculated, far more dangerous, and far more difficult to escape. The silence that follows Finn's revelation does not settle. It fractures. What had briefly felt like closure now unravels into something far more dangerous, a truth too volatile to contain and too terrifying to fully accept. In the aftermath of the letter, the fragile illusion of safety collapses completely, leaving everyone exposed to a threat that is no longer visible, no longer predictable, and far more powerful because of it. Sheila Carter is not just alive. She has rewritten the rules of the game, and no one yet understands the full extent of what that means. John becomes the first to truly grasp the magnitude of the danger, not because he has more information than the others, but because he understands Sheila's psychology in a way that cannot be taught or explained. To him, her disappearance is not an act of retreat. It is a strategic repositioning. Every instinct he has tells him that this is only the beginning, that Sheila has not escaped to survive, but to evolve. And what unsettles him most is the realization that she is no longer constrained by the emotional volatility that once made her predictable. Pain drove her before. Now, she is driven by purpose. Steffi Forrester Finnegan reacts differently, but no less intensely. Her fear is immediate, visceral, rooted in years of trauma that have conditioned her to expect the worst from Sheila. For a fleeting moment, she had allowed herself to believe that it was over, that the threat had finally been eliminated. That illusion shatters violently, replaced by a resurgence of anxiety that feels even more suffocating than before. Because this time, there are no boundaries, no prison, no consequences. Sheila is out there, unseen, and that makes her more dangerous than she has ever been. For Deacon Sharp and Taylor Hayes, the realization is not just frightening, it is deeply personal. The guilt they had begun to process now transforms into something far more corrosive. They are forced to confront the possibility that their actions did not end Sheila's story, but instead gave her the perfect opportunity to disappear and return on her own terms. Every memory of their last interactions with her becomes suspect, every word re-examined through the lens of manipulation. What if Sheila had already been planning this? What if everything they believed was genuine emotion had been part of a larger design? This shift in perception creates a new kind of tension between them, subtle but undeniable. Their connection, once a source of comfort, now carries the weight of shared responsibility. They do not turn against each other, but neither can they fully escape the awareness that their relationship is entangled in the consequences of Sheila's transformation. Love, in this moment, is no longer simple. It is burdened by the knowledge that it may have been the catalyst for something far darker. As fear begins to spread, it does not manifest in chaos, but in hyper-awareness. Every detail becomes significant. Every unexplained moment is questioned. The world does not feel louder. It feels sharper, as though danger has embedded itself into the fabric of everyday life. And within that heightened sensitivity, patterns begin to emerge. It starts with small things. A phone call that disconnects just as it is answered. A car that seems to linger too long before disappearing. A message that appears where it should not be. None of these incidents are overtly threatening, but together they create a sense of presence that cannot be ignored. Sheila does not announce herself. She allows them to feel her, to sense her just beyond reach, to understand that she is watching without ever revealing where she stands. For Finn, this pattern confirms his worst fears. Sheila is not acting impulsively. She is orchestrating. She is studying them, learning their reactions, identifying their weaknesses. And most importantly, she is controlling the pace. By refusing to strike immediately, she forces them into a state of constant anticipation, a psychological pressure that erodes their ability to think clearly, to act decisively. It is not just a threat. It is a strategy designed to destabilize them from within. Meanwhile, somewhere far removed from the tension she has created, Sheila moves through her new reality with unsettling calm. The chaos she once embodied has been replaced by something quieter, more deliberate. She is no longer reacting to the world. She is shaping it. Every step she takes is measured. Every decision aligned with a purpose that extends beyond simple revenge. Because for Sheila, this is no longer about reclaiming what she lost. It is about redefining herself in a way that cannot be undone. Her plan is not to destroy everything at once. That would be too predictable, too easily traced back to her. Instead, she begins to dismantle the lives of those who wronged her piece by piece, creating fractures that deepen over time. She understands that the most effective form of destruction is not immediate. It is gradual, almost imperceptible, until the damage is irreversible. Back in Los Angeles, the emotional strain begins to take its toll. Steffi becomes increasingly protective, her instincts pushing her toward control in an attempt to counter the unpredictability of the situation. Finn, in contrast, becomes more analytical, more focused on understanding rather than reacting. This difference creates tension between them, not because they disagree, but because they're approaching the same threat from fundamentally different perspectives. And in that tension, Sheila finds another opportunity. Deacon and Taylor, too, begin to feel the weight of the situation in ways they cannot easily articulate. Their attempts to move forward are constantly interrupted by the awareness that they are being watched, that their actions are no longer entirely their own. Even in moments of intimacy, there's a lingering hesitation, a subconscious recognition that they are not alone. That awareness begins to erode their sense of security, turning what should be a fresh start into something fragile, almost precarious. And then, just as the tension reaches a point where it feels almost unbearable, Sheila makes her next move. It is not dramatic. It is not violent. It is precise. A single action that shifts everything. Perhaps it is evidence planted where it should not exist, implicating someone in something they did not do. Perhaps it is a revelation, a truth exposed at exactly the right moment to cause maximum disruption. Or perhaps it is something even more subtle, a choice that forces one of them to question everything they thought they understood about the others. Whatever form it takes, the effect is immediate and profound. The balance that had been tenuously maintained collapses, replaced by confusion, suspicion, and a growing sense that the situation is spiraling beyond their control. And through it all, Sheila remains unseen, untouched, unreachable. The final image does not show her actions, it shows her reaction. Standing at a distance, observing the consequences of what she has set in motion, she does not rush to claim victory. She watches. She waits, because she knows something the others are only beginning to understand. This is not about a single act of revenge. It is about transformation. And as long as she remains hidden, as long as she controls the narrative, she is not just part of the story anymore.